Hi there, Kevin here. Once again, welcome to the Joy of Trucking. I'm a solo OTR driver with Werner. Doing some reading today. I'm on my reset, come up with some interesting facts and figures concerning the truck driver shortage. So hit that subscribe button and I'll tell you a story. One survey from last year said that there were 10 million CDL holders in this country to fill 3.7 million trucks. That means there's 3 times as many drivers as there are trucks. So how could there be a shortage? And yet every year the Association of Truck Driving Companies claims there's a shortage. This year, last year it was like, oh, there's 80,000 drivers needed. You know, that's how many drivers we're short. We need to fill these trucks, you know, and we've got all these problems. And the supply chain bottlenecks, like, you know, the ports were all backed up and the ships were sitting out in the harbor not getting unloaded. And then we had the COVID problems and everybody thought, you know, production should decrease because everybody's at home, and then everybody started buying stuff online. So it actually increased demand. Store shelves were empty and all that sort of thing. The last couple of years, this has been going up and down like a roller coaster. And they're saying they need more truck drivers to meet the demand. And yet there are a lot of truck drivers. They're just not driving the trucks. And why is that? So another interesting statistic I came across is OTR turnover. The guys that are long haul truck drivers, the turnover is over 90% every year. That means trucking companies have to replace 9 out of 10 of their drivers every year. That's unbelievable. Those are incredible statistics, and that leads me to the next conclusion. I was reading another article about this that was saying the trucking companies are claiming driver shortages. That's the problem. That's why the shelves are empty in the stores and demand is high and all that stuff. And yet their drivers keep quitting. So perhaps the problem is retention of drivers because they keep quitting. It's not that there's not enough drivers. And their answer to that, the trucking companies own or support all these CDL schools. I went to Phoenix Truck Driving School a year ago. We had like 40 guys in the class. It was so bad, I only got like 2 minutes a day at the wheel in the training yard. So for 3 weeks, I'd sit all day and wait to get at the wheel for 2 minutes and then get kicked out of the truck again. When we got out on the street driving, I was in the truck with the instructor and 3 other guys. So we each got like 20 minutes driving in the streets, and then you sat there watching the next guy do it and trying to learn from his mistakes. I drove by a month ago because the terminal is only a block away from the school, and every time I go by there's more and more trucks there, and I know they're getting their trucks from Swift. And they where we had like, I don't know, 6 trucks in the yard, now there's 7 or 8 in the yard, and they're parking more of them on the street. So now they've got so many trucks that more guys can be out driving and practicing on the road and practicing on the range. I also heard from a friend of mine that they opened another branch up in Flagstaff. So again, more instructors, more trucks. So they're adding to the school, and it makes me wonder. Instead of dealing with their retention problem, they're just putting more and more money into the schools to turn out more and more drivers. They already know everybody's going to quit in the first year. Or 90%, 95% of their drivers are going to quit in the first year. So maybe the trucking companies are taking the wrong approach. Maybe they ought to look at why drivers are leaving, you know? What are the conditions? What makes the guys quit? You're working long hours. You look at that DOT clock. You can drive 11 hours, and you can do a 14-hour work day, and you can work 70 hours in a week. Okay, those 3 things alone should be red lights to anybody considering a job. All right, I've worked in management, I've worked in blue collar jobs, I've punched a time clock. If anybody said to me, hey, you know you can work 11 hours today, you know you can work 14 hours today, I'd say the pay had better be pretty friggin' good, you know. If I work more than 8 hours in a day, you're gonna start paying me time and a half for every hour after that, or it's not worth it. I'd rather be at home watching TV. If you're gonna keep paying me straight time, I'm making a huge sacrifice by working that long day. And if you said to me, hey, instead of 40-hour week punching this time clock, you get to work 70, I'd say, that's a lot of time away from my home and my family. You'd better compensate me. Anything over 40 hours in that week, you're going to pay me time and a half. It's going to cost you to make me work like a slave, okay? And then you're not going to do it very often. You're going to keep that overtime down. If there's a crisis and we really need workers and there's a big, push for something, it's worth it to pay that extra money. But any normal human being doesn't want to work 70 hours a week. And if they do, you have to make it worth it. The other conditions, a lot of times you're driving at night. When I worked a blue-collar job, night shift was an extra premium. If I worked, during the daylight hours, whether it's 8 to 4, 7 to 3, 9 to 5, that's a normal work day. If you insist that I come in and work at midnight and not see my family and sleep all day and get all bags under my eyes and unhealthy and stuff, there's an extra premium for that, because again, you're making a huge sacrifice in your personal life. The time away from home is another big issue. I worked a job where we did contracts. We worked all over the world, so I'd have to get on a plane, go to a foreign country, and live there for 3 or 4 weeks at a time to do a job, and then I'd get to come home. That's hardship pay. You're not at home. You're on the road. There's an extra premium for that too, and OTR drivers are expected to suck that up and make as much as you would, being home every night. No, that's another extra sacrifice in your life. Not seeing your family, not being in your own bed every night, not cooking in your own kitchen, not seeing your friends, having a social life, all that stuff. That's extra hardship. That's not a normal life. I'm sorry. And then there's the fact that it's hazardous work. If I was driving let's say I was doing a job that had extra hazards, like I'm working with explosives, or I'm on a skyscraper, I could fall off. I'm working in confined spaces where I could get crushed. That's hazardous work. You should be compensated for that. You're not sitting in an office pushing paper around. You're not working in a factory, stamping out things, this and that. No, you're driving a truck. You could be crushed. You could flip that thing. You could die in your truck if it's minus 40 and your truck dies, you freeze to death. There's a lot of hazards to the job. Again, you should be compensated, because these are extreme conditions, not normal for a normal job, a normal person. Poor living conditions. All right, we got these nice sleepers because we're OTR and we're expected to live in our truck for weeks at a time. But there's no running water. You've got heat, you've got a place to sleep, you got, you can bring food and stuff like that. Maybe you got an APU, so you've got power for your gadgets and your fridge. There's no running water, there's no toilet, there's no shower. If you were at home, you'd expect all those conveniences. You wouldn't move into an apartment that didn't have a sink or a toilet, would you? So again, you're being deprived of comforts, of things that normal people would not give up. All this stuff adds up, and it's part of the retention problem, And I'm not saying let's put a bathroom in the truck, and I'm not saying we'll never drive after dark again. I'm not saying all that. I'm telling you, I've worked at jobs, and normal people have worked at jobs where if you do extreme things, you endure uncomfortable things, if you're in a hazardous situation, you should be compensated for that. And that's the retention problem. That's why 9 out of 10 OTR drivers don't last a year. Right out of school, you got the rookie driver. He's eager to make some money, and he'll put up with the hardship. But you start to think, is there something I could do to make more money, or is there something I can do to have a more comfortable life? And that's where you get the retention problem. Another thing that I've noticed in the last year, I got 3 raises last year. So they're throwing more money at the drivers, trying to keep them happy and improve the retention. And this year I see more and more sign-on bonuses. So it's more like they're trying to steal drivers from each other, and which fuels the retention problem too. There's, you're driving and you're unhappy with something that happened today. You're like, oh, I can get $5,000 if I switch companies right now. But looking at that too, you can't always compare apples to apples in these situations. We've done a lot of research. One company will pay another 10 cents per mile, and then you look more closely at it, you don't get as many miles. So are you really ahead? You've got to look at so many different factors. The sign-on bonus is $5,000, they pay it out over 2 years. So after a year, you're like, holy smokes, it's not as good as I thought, and it's taken them forever to give me the bonus. So do they pay that up front? Not likely, because then you'd take the bonus and you'd walk. You know, you've already got the money in your pocket. Let's go back to my old job now. It was actually better, but now I've got this bonus cash. So they're not just handing out free money. You still got to earn it and got to do so much research, which will bring me to another question that I keep coming back to. Now, some companies are paying, a lot of the companies pay cents per mile, and if they throw more and more of that money at you, there's other things you got to think about too. So when you go out looking for your job and you think, oh, OTR, I'll make so many cents per mile, but then you get the live loads where maybe you're sitting at a dock for 2 hours, you're not making cents per mile. Or you get a situation where the load's not ready and you're stuck here for 3 or 4 hours, you're not making those cents per mile. Where you get detention pay or breakdown pay, or some companies don't pay that. So maybe part of the problem too is that every company is doing it different, and you have to do so much research, and you don't really know what it's like until you're working for that company. So maybe there should be a more standardized kind of thing where, let's say there's a daily minimum flat rate, and if you do excessive miles, it's over and above that, or the daily rate, say, is deducted from your mileage. So if you do get stuck in a situation where it's a live load, you're not making cents per mile because you're stuck for one reason or another, you still have that security. You're not sitting there for 8 hours going, I am not making 1 cent today. I'm out here, I'm far from my family, I'm in hazardous conditions, I don't have a toilet, and I'm not making any money either. Well, of course you're going to consider another occupation. But if you're at least secure in the fact that your bills are still paid, that you're not worried about how hard you have to drive now for the rest of the week to make up this lost income, so maybe a flat rate, daily minimum, something like that might help with the retention problem. And another big problem is that nightly truck stop search. You know what I mean? You just drove for 10 hours and now you're worried that the truck stop you're aiming for doesn't have any spaces left, and now you've got to drive another hour to find the next place, and maybe they don't have any places to stop. That's happened to us many times. Maybe the trucking companies can get together with the government and put in better truck stops with better facilities. I see a lot of these. We drove through Texas and there's like truck parking here. Okay, you pull over and you're going to spend the night there, and all they got is a dumpster. Where are you going to go to the bathroom? Why isn't there any place to like wash your hands and your face? Why, running water, a toilet would really make a difference. Maybe make them exclusively for truck drivers, so all those big spots for all the big trucks aren't taken up by a guy in a Volvo or something sleeping in his car. Yeah, those are a couple other things that you can think about. So basically all I'm saying is, you've got the problem of the truck driver shortage, you've got the problem of driver retention, which is all a part of it, and maybe the trucking companies can take a different look at that instead of just, putting up more CDL schools and throwing more cents per mile at it. There's other things that we want to be compensated for all the hardship, for all the hazard and all that stuff, and we want better living conditions. So that's it for now. I'd like to know what your comments are. Maybe you got a different point of view, maybe you got something to add to it. Let's talk about it. So put your comments down here. If you like what I'm saying, give it a thumbs up. I hope you got something out of this. We always try to be informative here in the Joy of Trucking. And hit that subscribe button. Let's follow along and see what comes next. And there's that notification bell too. Bye for now. I'll see you down the road.